16,789 confirmed attacks involving knife crime in 1 year. A new one every 10 minutes, 86% decade rise. London streets had turned into war zones, mass attack by county lines. Officials argued that it was just a minor accident and there was no need to worry too much. The crowds didn't care. Starmer stands accused of turning Britain into the Machete capital of Europe. At 8:05 p.m, protesters from London to Leeds demanded the immediate deportation of 900,000 individuals back to Africa and the Middle East. Starmer dismissed the demand as absolutely intolerant and impossible. At 8:23, a massive assault was launched against police cordons. The order was to hold the line. By 8:40, the sharp platoon retreated after taking volleys of fireworks directly to the face. This wasn't a holiday celebration. This was total chaos. Starr issued a statement claiming murder rates are down 6% and knife murder is down 1%. He only made it worse. Opposition leader Farage fired back that over 70% of crime remains in the shadows, pointing directly at the involvement of illegal arrivals.
I think we all know that crime has risen significantly over the course of the last few years, and most of us now just don't even bother to report crime.
Why? Because those on the small boats aren't in the police database and hold no documents. Participating in the procession is considered an offence. In just 2 hours, 6 new vans were deployed. 3 were surrounded and destroyed. By 9:05 p.m, groups of masked men initiated clashes with police. The protesters were no longer demanding action. They were taking the streets into their own hands. Glass bottles were launched at mounted units. 90 people were hospitalised on both sides. Multiple media outlets labelled the waves as far extremists. Keir Starmer told European leaders,
"Britain is fully under control. The radicals have almost zero support."
At the London protest, placards were raised high. 320% rise in machete attacks since the year 2000. Critics warned that 80% of women and children are under threat. 7 hotels were suddenly ablaze for reasons yet unknown. Police deployed additional barricades to shield migration centres. Let's be honest, corporate media won't tell you how bad this really is because they're terrified of admitting law and order has completely broken down. That's why we built UK Instability to deliver unfiltered truth. Subscribe now to hear the whole truth. By that moment, 69 arrests had been made, but the worst lay elsewhere. A 240% surge in teenage knife homicides compared to 2015. 150 attacks inside schools. Kitchen cleavers and machetes are being seized from classrooms. In response, Starmer introduces kindness lessons to influence students' minds. He bypasses the root of the problem. At the same time, 3 boats were spotted arriving from the Channel. Then, Nigel Farage declared that Britain has one chance left. Repeal the ban on pepper spray, at least for women. Enact the Castle Doctrine, so homeowners have the right to defend their property. 2.3 million comments in just 3 hours. They demanded the right to self-defense, just like in the US. Because in Britain, a victim relies solely on the police, who might arrive only when you are already dead. But what followed was something Keir Starmer branded a flagrant violation of all human rights. Farage insisted on the deportation of over 900,000 new arrivals back to the Middle East and Africa.
I asked Starmer to deport the 900,000 illegal immigrants in small boats back to the Middle East and Africa.
He vowed to create militarized units similar to ICE in the US. Donald Trump has repeatedly hinted that he could assist with specialists to make Britain safe again. But Starmer applied a different solution. A law banning the sale of zombie knives was announced. Gangs across Britain bought out the knives on marketplaces 1 month before the law took effect. Zombie knives were simply renamed katanas to bypass the law. It was a Labour-failed decision. By doing nothing, Nigel Farage gained 2.3% of new voters in the polls in just 4 hours. Starmer built his entire political brand on his past as the nation's top prosecutor. He promised to bring order to the chaos. Instead, he delivered the SDS 40 disaster. Britain's prison system is operating at over 99% capacity. The cells are full. The guards are overwhelmed. But instead of building more capacity or securing the borders, Starmer chose to open the gates. The government frames it as a logistical necessity. The public sees it as a surrender.
No comment.
Under the controversial SDS 40 scheme, dangerous offenders are walking free after serving just 40% of their sentences. It is a revolving door that mocks the concept of justice. In a single year, 40,000 convicts have been dumped back onto British streets. Thugs know the sentences are merely suggestions. Critics warned that Starmer has effectively decriminalised serious offences by removing the consequences. The opposition is incandescent with rage. Nigel Farage has condemned the scheme as a betrayal of every law-abiding family in Britain. His solution was blunt and uncompromising. More than 10,000 foreign nationals are currently occupying British prison cells. Farage demanded their immediate deportation to their countries of origin. Such a move would free thousands of cells overnight. It would save taxpayers millions in accommodation and security costs. It would create space for the Machete gangs terrorising London's streets. Yet Starmer refuses to act. Foreign criminals remain fed and housed behind bars, while British offenders are released back into neighbourhoods. It is a grotesque inversion of priorities that no serious nation would tolerate. Keir Starmer, once presented as the hard-nosed prosecutor, has become the jailer who lost the keys. Victims live in fear, watching their abusers stroll down the high street mere months after sentencing. Police officers are demoralised. They risk their lives to arrest predators, only to see them released by spreadsheets drafted in Whitehall. Nearly 40,000 potential repeat offenders now circulate freely among the public. The deterrent has evaporated. Carry a zombie knife and you know you won't serve your sentence. Assault a pensioner and you know the prisons are full. Starmer has sent a clear signal to the criminal underworld. Britain is open for business. He chose to empty prisons instead of securing borders. He chose to release the dangerous rather than deport the foreign. The anarchy unfolding across the nation is not a system malfunction. For months, critics warned that early releases would end in bloodshed. The government pressed the button regardless. That is the reality Farage has been shouting about. In the United States, a homeowner defends his castle. In Starmer's Britain, he waits for the police while his family is threatened, fully aware that defending himself may land him before a judge. The mobs torching cars tonight are fueled by this betrayal. They see a justice system that pursues a grandmother over a Facebook post while granting early release to machete-wielding thugs. Morality has been turned upside down. Police retreat not because they are outgunned, but because a legal framework now criminalises effective policing. Britain has reached the point of no return. The social contract is in tatters. When the state confiscates your means of defence and then refuses to defend you, the streets inevitably erupt. Whitehall watches hotels burn while debating hate speech laws, blind to the reality that the public has realised they are on their own. The ban on pepper spray, the refusal to deport foreign criminals, and the SDS 40 scheme are not isolated failures. Together, they form a suicide note for a Western democracy. Starmer promised to smash the gangs. Instead, he smashed public faith in the law itself. Britain now stands alone among developed nations in believing that banning a particular shape of handle can stop a massacre. Tonight's inferno did not happen by chance. The Home Office held detailed reports warning that banning zombie knives would simply push gangs toward 20-inch ninja swords, that the online black market was unregulated, that schools were already seizing large blades daily, and that disarming law-abiding citizens would leave them defenceless. Every warning was flagged for urgent action. Starmer ignored them all. Aides claim the Prime Minister personally rejected the Castle Doctrine.
First, immediately, our water cannon will be used.
As violating proportionate response. Proportionate response, while hotels burn, migration centres are barricaded, and police vans are overturned by mobs who know the state has folded. A government that confiscates pepper spray from women becomes a government that empowers their attackers. Under Starmer's tenure, machete attacks tripled. The ninja sword loophole was exploited immediately. Police lost control of entire postcodes as Whitehall paralysed itself with ideological dogma. Even tonight, as cities slipped into open revolt, senior officials were more focused on condemning Farage's rhetoric than stopping fireworks being fired at police horses. This is how a state loses its monopoly on violence, not in one dramatic collapse, but through thousands of confiscated sprays. Whitehall may deny it. Starmer may spin it. But the public saw the truth reflected in the flames tonight. Britain is now governed by people who would sooner prosecute a homeowner for fighting back than deport the foreign criminal who broke in. Had the unrest come from Republicans demanding lower taxes, the response would have been immediate and decisive. But because the violence erupted from a public pushed to the brink by unchecked knife crime, Whitehall's instinct was not to fix the problem, but to silence the complaint. What truly frightened Britain tonight was not the sound of shattering glass. It was the silence from Keir Starmer, a Prime Minister with no answer. Whitehall withdrew, Metropolitan Police fell back, and Starmer's government once again chose the appearance of virtue over the reality of public safety. The message was unmistakable. If you are facing a machete, you are on your own. The international standing of the United Kingdom has entered a steep and visible decline. Inside the National Health Service, the cost of political denial is being counted in critical care beds. Trauma surgeons are now treating injuries once confined to active combat zones. Doctors report a surge in severed limbs, catastrophic eviscerations, and permanent nerve damage inflicted by military-grade blades. Taxpayers are funding a healthcare system overwhelmed by casualties from a turf war the government refuses to acknowledge. Yet each night, the national broadcaster presents a sanitised version of reality. Suspects in knife attacks are stripped of description, reduced to the neutral label youths, masking clear and repeated demographic patterns. Footage of seized weapons is withheld. This is not journalism. It is curated silence, designed to manage public anxiety rather than confront public danger. International capital is quietly withdrawing from London. Foreign investors increasingly view the state's inability to guarantee basic physical safety as a structural economic risk. Wealth is mobile, and it is relocating to jurisdictions where employees can walk to work without fear. The social fabric is tearing along visible fault lines. In parts of Birmingham and Leeds, distinct communities have begun organising their own street patrols. These groups now police their own borders without state oversight. The constabulary has tacitly surrendered sovereignty over entire postcodes to avoid confrontation. Britain is witnessing a de facto balkanisation of its cities, no longer one nation under a single rule of law, but a patchwork of territories managed by local power brokers. Starmer's answer is kindness workshops in secondary schools, a policy entirely detached from the threat level on the streets. Parents are no longer just buying pencil cases. They are ordering bulletproof backpack inserts online. Extreme violence has been normalised at the school gates. As the state retreats, dangerous substitutes rush in to fill the vacuum. Black market demand for illegal defensive sprays has exploded among women, a quiet but damning indictment of a government that disarms the public while refusing to protect it. Neighbourhood groups are now coordinating defensive strategies through encrypted messaging apps. When a government abdicates its duty to protect its citizens, vigilantism does not emerge by accident. It fills the vacuum. This is not a temporary spike on a crime graph. It marks a fundamental shift in how the kingdom functions. Authorities appear to believe this decline can be managed with silence, selective statistics, and message control. They are misreading the public mood. What Britain is experiencing is no longer simple dissatisfaction. It is the dawning realization that the social contract has been quietly dissolved. The era of instinctive reliance on the police is ending. The era of self-preservation has begun. Fear of being labelled biased has overtaken the duty of full disclosure. Nigel Farage has emerged as the most vocal challenger to this institutional silence. He characterises the suppression of suspect information as a deliberate state cover-up of migration failures. As leader of Reform UK, Farage is demanding a detailed breakdown of violent crime statistics by nationality and visa status. It is precisely the dataset the Home Office has long resisted publishing. Farage argues that voters cannot make informed decisions if the scale of the problem is hidden behind censorship. He points to a stark inconsistency in reporting standards. When a suspect is native-born, identity and background are rarely protected. When the suspect is a recent arrival or asylum seeker, the information flow abruptly stops. Farage maintains that this double standard is eroding trust between the police and the public. He frames transparency not as prejudice, but as a prerequisite for national safety. The government rejects his demands as reckless populism. Ministers accuse him of exploiting individual tragedies to inflame division and stigmatise communities. They insist crime is a matter of individual choice, not cultural import. Yet the persistent refusal to release comprehensive data betrays a government fearful of what the numbers might reveal. By suppressing facts, authorities are not calming tensions. They are creating an information vacuum now filled by speculation, rumour, and radical distrust. And in that vacuum, silence becomes the most dangerous policy of all. Stay tuned for the next update.